So 2 years ago, when I was part-time at WTMJ doing mornings with Eric and Vince, there were only a handful of women in the newsroom, Jane Matnair and Melissa Barclay. Debbie Lazaga was obviously still doing traffic, and Carol Kane would fill in with Steve Scafidi. And on Mondays, Tracy Johnson was here every once in a while, but there wasn't a single show being hosted by a woman on WTMJ. Fast forward to today, almost half of our lineup now has a female host. Obviously, there's this show. Obviously, there is What's on Tap with Sandy Maxx.
Yay.
Midday News with Jessica Tighe.
Hello, hello.
Wisconsin's Afternoon News with Julia Fello.
Yay.
And our newsroom is now run by Tiff Pua. We have 2 women in the booth right now. Woo. And obviously, Debbie is still here, trusting with our trusty traffic. And
hello.
Not to be cheesy, but I didn't know until this morning that I wanted to do this with all of you.
Sure.
But I had a reflection of, as I got my baby girl dressed, that this is not nothing. And I might be a sap for feeling like that, but I wanted to acknowledge that this is a big deal, that we have this many women on air now on this historic station. And I don't know, is the significance lost on any of you, or am I alone in this?
I think it's valid. I think a lot of times that while there have been female voices on WTMJ, it has been a guest, it's been a visitor, it's been a flavor to the feel and sound of the station. But when you look at I looked it up, 2020 census, women are 50.9% of the general population. So just simply representationally, it makes sense to have some even Steven voices for male and female. So I think this is useful. I think it's a step in the right direction, and I think it brings people together because all the men in their lives enjoy all the women in their lives, whether they're married to them or a son, so we're part of the fabric in the real world. Why shouldn't we be a part of the fabric here on WTMJ?
You kind of gave me the goosebumps when you were talking about your experience, because it's nice to hear that because you were here. So you actually saw those changes taking place where some of us, like Julia and myself, we popped in. I did think, though, that you were going to start off the show with something like, man, I feel like a woman.
Replayed that, yeah.
I thought that was going to happen. A little Shania Twain music.
But for a while there, I was like the only female voice.
Yeah, Debbie.
So, yeah, for a little while there. So I'm really glad. Thank you guys for coming on board. This is awesome. Yeah, no, it's really exciting to hear. Having a really solid representation across the board is just, super important. So, yeah, definitely. I hear, Sandy, what you said.
Yeah, and I think that we need to give credit to our male colleagues for sure. John McCure believed in me. Even when I was a young reporter and I first came here almost 9.5 years ago, he was always encouraging because we were shared under one roof with TMJ4 News and radio. So, and we gathered that friendship, and he kept me inspired with many things that he did. So give credit to them. But what's interesting as a reporter, what I've noticed is some dated things where you can see where women weren't involved, like our city hall. If you look at every other level, it's man or woman, male restrooms. Male restroom is the first floor, woman second, and I have to go up and down. The reason why is because it was all male restrooms when it was first built. So there weren't both genders on every level. And that's the same for the Capitol building in Madison. That's why you have to run up and down. So there's little things like that you don't really think about. And my coworkers didn't believe me, my little Gen Zers, that in 1974, the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, that was when women were finally able to apply for credit cards in their own name. You couldn't do that before. When credit cards came around, like I looked it up, 1940s, 1950s. And so little things like that. And I think that this is a little thing, but we have to give credit to our male colleagues for allowing us to have that space, because if you look in the history, there wasn't even a space for a bathroom.
And embracing it. I mean, I would give credit to all of our male teammates right now as far as how excited I think they've been that we're now here. And Tiff, a lot of this started with you.
What's neat has been the opportunity, right? So as WTMJ kind of looks at its history, if we go back, WTMJ got its call letters in 1927. And when we look at the evolution of what is possible in media, women have been a part of it, but never at the forefront. And this is our opportunity to be able to bring more diverse voices, more applicable voices on some level, into the conversation, not as a side, but an equal part. And this was a cool opportunity to be able to do that, to look around this room and see, here in our studio, if you're watching our live stream, you can see the amazing women of WTMJ, both in the booth and outside the booth, that make a difference every day behind the scenes, on the mic, online, where we're finally amplifying the voices of the women in our community, the ones that may not listen all the time, but catch us every once in a while and say, wait a minute, I have a thought here, or I have something to say about this. And recognizing the importance of those voices. That is what we do now as an opportunity.
Well, thank you so much for spending a couple minutes with us on air today. Julia Fello, Tiff Pua, Debbie Lazaga, Jessica Tighe, Sandy Maxx. And I will end where I began. Here's to strong women. May we know them. May we be them. May we raise them. And may we work with them.
Cheers.
This is Spanning the State. Brewers baseball is next.